Hey guys, this is Group 3's response to Grace, her video regarding Frederick Jones and Frederick Jones's, different methods for classroom management. So when I was listening to that video, I kind of narrowed my response video down to 3 critiques. The first critique is going to be dealing with credibility. The second critique is going to be dealing with results, and the final critique is going to be dealing with implementation. So the first critique that I'm going to address is credibility. Frederick Jones certainly has credibility in his field of psychology. If he were to be sitting across from me right now, I'm sure he could defend himself quite well. But as future educators, we are learning about instructional strategies primarily from those with direct experience in education. And if Frederick Jones has that, great. But in Grace's video, it just wasn't made clear that he has experience as an educator. She listed that he had a lot of experience logging observation hours in classrooms for many years. And he has a lot of experience in psychology, particularly with disorders that apply to students. So again, has credibility to a certain extent, but when he lists all of these different methods for classroom management and different strategies for instruction, I just wanted to make a point that maybe he himself, as an actual educator, has not been responsible for implementing a lot of these strategies. And that kind of carries over to my next 2 critiques. The second critique is regarding results. When Grace was presenting some of the different strategies, one was proximity, which we've discussed in class before, seemingly an effective strategy. We've discussed it as a class, but in the actual presentation, when discussing the results of that strategy, the big question that came to my mind from the viewpoint as somebody who's responsible for critiquing the presentation was questioning the results. Like, how do we get there? Grace listed the results as they just kind of go away, like the behavior problems. So if you sit the student next to you, the problems just kind of go away. And I know that that's low-hanging fruit, and like it's easy to, as an attacker, critique that, because really, I don't want to get too semantical, but I'm just saying that it was kind of like vague maybe on exactly what kind of results would be demonstrable from proximity. Again, proximity might be a great strategy, but how exactly does somebody like myself, like a future instructor, when you say things like don't be verbal with the student, use proximity instead, my critique is just simply like, does that work with every student? Of course not. Is proximity 100% effective? I know you're not even making that argument, but it's just like, if I can't be verbal with the student, if my expectation is like, don't be verbal with the student and utilize proximity, I guess my question is more so like, how exactly? And also, if it backfires, like, what are the efficacy rates? Because if it doesn't work, what am I expected to do? And I know you can't spend time on a presentation rebutting every future criticism. I'm just saying that was kind of my takeaway from it. So the final critique is that of implementation, which has kind of been the recurring theme of my criticisms. You discuss things like structured classroom and time management, such as with the PAT and other activity time. And my critique there is just, again, it comes down to like how. So one of the biggest hurdles we have as instructors is managing time. In the thick of the semester, when the curriculum requires the most instruction and the most planning, it can be difficult to plan instruction. And so it kind of goes back to Jones's experience. Has he ever had that experience as an educator where maybe his district has certain requirements, state requirements, federal requirements, so on and so forth, and then you also now have to account for activity time And then you also give the freedom to the students to choose their own activities, and maybe some of those activities would take too long. So then it's like, do the students actually have the freedom to choose their own activities, or are you going to restrict them and say, okay, actually that one's going to take a little too long, so maybe don't choose that activity, as far as like PAT and giving students that freedom of choice. So again, it's like, it sounds great to be like, oh, here, let's manage time, and let's have a structured classroom. But again, my questions are just like, how do we get there? It was kind of vague on how we exactly arrive on that. How do we implement these strategies? And what does time management actually look like? There were a few bullet points under time management in the presentation, but I guess I'm just wanting a little bit more depth in detail, especially as somebody who's going to be responsible for managing time in a classroom. So again, this is Group 3's response to Frederick Jones, Grace's presentation, and I just had 3 critiques regarding credibility, regarding results, and regarding implementation.